Hello friends, welcome to today's daily devotion. I'm Kerry Wood, the pastor of the Goldston Methodist Church in Goldston, North Carolina. We are proudly a global Methodist congregation, and this week we are going to be looking at Romans, the second chapter. We looked at Romans chapter 1 last week, and if you missed any of those daily devos, I highly encourage you to go back through the playlist, find them, because what we're doing this week is building on what Paul started last week in chapter 1. Today, as we look at Romans chapter 2, the first 4 verses, hear these words. Therefore, you have nothing to say in your own defense, whoever you are, who set yourself up as judge. In judging others, you condemn yourself. For who set yourself up as a judge? You who set yourself up as a judge do the very same things. And we know that God's judgment falls unerringly on those who do them. You who judge those that do such things and yet are yourself guilty of them, do you suppose that you, of all people, will escape God's judgment? Or do you think lightly of his abundant kindness, patience, and forbearance, not realizing that his kindness is meant to lead you to repentance? Okay, here is where Paul starts to get complicated because he's beginning an argument. And of course, an argument requires both sides of the argument in order to truly understand what is even being argued about. And as Paul is writing this, we have to put ourselves into the place of the person Paul is arguing with, arguing against, so that we can then begin to understand what it is that he's arguing for. So remember, chapter 1, he ended by giving us that clobber list, all of those different ways in which we as human beings have messed things up and ignored God, and as a result have done all kinds of ugly, bad, horrid things. Well, the temptation is to say, well, that's not me. I don't do anything like that. And so immediately, as he turns to chapter 2, what does Paul say? You have nothing to say in your own defense. And who set you up to be the judge? For you see, when we say, well, that's not me, that's somebody else, that's judging the somebody else. And so as Paul moves into the second chapter, he's telling us two things. Number one, we can't be the ones to cast the stone. We are not the ones who can stand in judgment over anybody else. Only God can. And if God is standing in judgment over everybody else, then that means I'm also in the group being judged. You are also in the group being judged. So what should we do with all of this? Should we cringe in fear, in trepidation, and know that we are on our way to being obliterated? Paul makes an interesting turn. He says this, do you not realize that his kindness is meant to lead you to repentance? Repentance is not something that we think of as being a kindness, but it is. God's kindness leads us to repentance, where we come back to God and humbly submit ourselves to his judgment. And when that happens, some surprising things will take place. But to learn what those surprising things are, you're going to have to tune in for tomorrow's daily devotion.